Are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Yep, no guarantee it works. Let me test it first.
No Jennifer today.
My back.
No, because of no legal
Yeah,
issues
that's-
tonight, this is about as informal as it's gonna get.
Yeah.
No quasi judicial, so they gave our attorney the day off.
Oh, very nice. Well, good evening, everyone. I'll officially call to order the meeting of the Keystone Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is January 16th and it's about 5:35, I think, yeah. I would now like to ask our recording secretary to call the roll.
Sorry guys, in advance, I sound like a frog, so just bear with me. Commissioner Tim Heiting,
Here.
Commissioner Steve Jacobson,
There.
Commissioner Diane Leavesley,
Yeah, I think that was good.
Was that me?
That's Diane of our new
Yeah,
member.
that's Diana Lee.
Unfortunately.
Oh, Diane, excuse me.
they're here, okay. Commissioner David Koch, not present. Commissioner Peter Madland, Commissioner Kathy Rowe, Commissioner Wendy Tim, Chair Wotash, oh no. Hey guys, I got muted out, so I actually didn't get to hear anybody. It seems like the microphone is off.
Oh.
So, I'm gonna actually start that again just because I didn't get an effective roll at all.
Yeah.
So just bear with me again. Sorry, I sound like a frog. I got Tim and Steve, and then it stopped there. So Commissioner Diane Leavesley,
Just raise your hand, I think who's present.
present. Okay, perfect. Commissioner David Koch.
Late but here.
Okay, great. Commissioner Peter Madland.
Here.
Great. Commissioner Kathy Rowe.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Wendy Tim.
Here.
Commissioner Melanie Wotash.
Here.
Or Chair, sorry. Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Awesome. There are 9 members present.
Super, so thank you, and let the record show that we have a quorum. Our next thing will be to do the consent, we have the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our last meeting. And then obviously our discussion for this meeting, which is the community stakeholder engagement plan. Does anyone have any corrections or items that they'd like to have removed from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing no requests, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second?
Second.
All opposed, please, well, a motion's been made in a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, the consent agenda is approved.
Melanie, before you jump into the discussion item, I just want
Yeah.
to, for the record, welcome Kaylee. Kaylee is one of our alternates. She is filling this 3-year seat. And Diane is also, who is online tonight, is filling the 2-year seat. So just for the record, I want to welcome you. Thank you. And we're going to do, Jennifer, our attorney, and I are going to do some training, like sort of did with you guys.
Oh, perfect.
If any of you want to refresh the course, you let me know and you can join as well.
Great.
All right.
Super. Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome. Welcome to okay, so now we'll move to our general business and official actions. The main thing we're doing today is reviewing the draft community stakeholder engagement plan. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Lindsay to give us a briefing on what we need to do.
So with that being said, I believe we're going to jump right in.
Yeah.
And our consultant, Dylan, is going to guide us. And I'm very excited to get this process going. And this will be the first initial steps and to start a relatively long process. But we're kicking off. Here we go.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. The last time I saw all of you, I was interviewing for the ability to work with you all. So I'm really excited to be able to officially be working with you all. I'm looking forward to the partnership and getting to know you all throughout the process and continuing to check in and just, seeing where we want to go and yeah, what the future of Keystone is going to look like. I think it's really exciting times. So just kind of getting us started here. A few things we do want to discuss the engagement plan. I believe in your packet you will have seen a draft of the engagement plan that we put together. Again, it's in draft form. We're looking for feedback from town staff, from you all. Just is there any stakeholders that we missed? Are there maybe times that we should be kind of thinking about in terms of some public engagement events, right? I think there's a lot of successes in dovetailing some of those events with other things that are happening around town. So if you know of any things that are going to be coming up that are like a big draw where a lot of residents like to come out and enjoy, things that are happening, it's always great for us to be a part of those too, so that we can be there talking about the comprehensive plan, getting some feedback, things of that nature. So, you have that information. We'll be taking feedback from you over the next couple of weeks. We'll be happy to update the documents and make sure you have a fully formed version of that to review. So without any further ado, some other things that we want to talk about is just, what is the comp plan? Like, what are we trying to do here? What's kind of our overarching goal? I will briefly show you all the project timeline as it's drafted now, right? It's going to be a long process. We're looking at maybe the next 9 to 10 months, with hoping to, yes.
A minor point of order, since you're not on a microphone.
Yes.
Can you hear us online?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. And I've been accused of not being the loudest talker in the world too, so that's definitely a good point of clarification there.
There is a microphone at the podium though.
Yeah, okay, I'll go over here. Is this better? Is this better? All right.
Much better.
Stand, okay. All right, so the timeline, and then we'll review kind of what our plans are for existing conditions analysis. As you'll probably just understand, it's a little bit different than maybe we would be approaching this in a community that's got a long history as a fully formed municipality that maybe has done other comprehensive plans in the past, or has a history of other planning efforts. And we'll kind of dive into some of the idiosyncrasies, but and then we'll also kind of end with the engagement plan, because I expect that'll probably be where the bulk of our discussion will be. So just to kind of get us reoriented here, so what is the comp plan all about? Right, so the comprehensive plan, I'm sure for many of you, you're very familiar with comprehensive plans. You've either been part of one, you've helped write some, you've maybe reviewed some, you've read ones in other communities that you've been familiar with or lived in, or maybe for some of you, this might be your first experience running into a comprehensive plan. So just to kind of reacquaint us, all comprehensive plans are policy frameworks that help guide things like regulatory tools, such as zoning, annexations. They help also describe what a community's visions, goals, and objectives are, right? So like, this is where the community is now. That's sort of the existing conditions analysis, right? Like, what's our snapshot in time? But then where do we want to be, right? This is an opportunity for the community to reflect on saying, like, what's our future going to look like? What's the next 10 years look like? So some things that it does do is help set the stage, right? It's a framework for kind of describing what policies you want to explore, what things you want to be undertaking. But some things that it does not do, right, is dictating a specific pathway, right? No comprehensive plans look the same for any different communities. Every community is unique and they're dealing with their own challenges. And in the same way, right, your comprehensive plan has a lot of flexibility that's catered to what it is you want it to do, right? But it can also be something that's flexible and can evolve over time. So in this sort of triangle graph here, what we're trying to show is that comprehensive plan is sort of that foundational piece, right? It's where you have that opportunity to create sort of a vision, a long range aspirational approach, and also kind of dictate what are some policies that you're thinking about and show your intentions for the policies that you're looking to explore. And that'll set sort of the foundation for things like your land use regulations, right? Your PUDs, your zoning requirements, things like your 3 mile plan to look at what annexations are possible. So a lot of those are kind of formed based around what foundation you outlined in the comprehensive plan. And then from there, the next level up is right, the implementation of some of those things like the land use regulations, right? When you're getting the opportunity to review building permits, when you're getting the opportunity to review site plans or things of that nature, those are sort of kind of all trickling back, but the comprehensive plan kind of serves as that base. You have any questions on that?
Just a general question, maybe to Lindsay. In the past, we had comprehensive plan for the entire county. We had a comprehensive subset plan, if you will, for the Snake River Basin, and then of course the code. And the wording in these documents made it somewhat ambiguous about how enforceable are the items in either of those 2 or 3 versus the code. And so it, in my mind, it was, I don't know, difficult to understand whether zoning commissions, as like ourselves or the board or yourself, had real guidance about which one took precedence. Because there were a little ambiguity, there was a little bit of vagueness, and then that there was actually fair number of appendix details in the Snake River plan. There were actually fairly specific actionable items, which I kind of liked actually.
Implementation strategies.
Yeah, exactly. And I was wondering, what was your feeling for all that? Did that cause
So,
difficulty, confusion? It was wonderful. Can you
before you keep going on, and I can only handle a 3-part question. So, good question. And it's as if we scripted this. So the comprehensive plan, the county's comprehensive plan is sort of an umbrella, if you will. And then you have other plans underneath it. The one thing that you need to remember, and I drove this in from the day I met with people, is comp plans, master plans, advisory in nature, okay? There's a whole lot of shoulds, not shalls, okay? It's from a very simplistic standpoint. Now with that being said, what Dylan is also saying is the comp plan that we're gonna develop sets the stage for the land use regulations, so, which are the shalls. So, it's the shalls. So you have various different types of land use applications that you hear. Conditional use permits, rezoning, subdivisions, and more. Almost all of those have, well, they all have criteria for decisions. Various, depending on the type of application. A majority of those applications that you will be hearing at some future date, there is a criteria in there. Compliance, general compliance with the applicable master plan. This is the master plan we're developing. And it will replace what is currently that we had to do, the State River Master Plan, the comp plan. We needed something, yeah, as a Band-Aid approach. This will be our plan and our new set of regs, or I'm sorry, this will be our document.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lindsay. Yeah, I think just sort of kind of tacking on to the examples that Lindsay's providing, things that I've seen in other communities is like, so for instance, so let's say a new development comes in and they're asking for rezoning, right? And, the planning commission, town staff, they're looking at, okay, well, they're asking for this rezoning, what is it about this? You know, why do they need this rezoning? What is it about this development that's trying to either, that is it worth this sort of effort and this, ability for us to approve this rezoning? And so that's where they can kind of go into the comprehensive plan and say, okay, well, in the comprehensive plan, we said that we need hypothetically more affordable housing, and this development is saying we need to rezone because we need more density in order to provide more affordable housing. So then they could say, okay, well, maybe this rezoning should be approved because it's going to help further some of the goals and objectives that we outlined in the comprehensive plan. So it's a great reference tool going back and forth, right? When you're kind of going back and forth across these different tiers and sort of references that you have going here. So. Okay, so this is, okay, I forgot the screen size in here, so I'm sorry. This is probably impossible to see, but I'll make sure that you all have a version of this sent out to you too. But this is the project look ahead. So this is our schedule. I think it's kind of just drawing your attention maybe to some few key points. So upcoming, right, we had the project kickoff with internal staff and then our team, which is SE Group, and then we have 2 sub-consultants. So Fair and Piers is doing the transportation work, which I understand is, a big part of your incorporation process was trying to look at how the town could better work with CDOT with safety issues. So that's going to be their big task throughout this process. And then EPS, Economic Planning Systems, is going to be looking at doing the housing needs assessment and housing strategy, which is going to be a required element of this comprehensive plan as well. We did the kickoff meeting with Lindsay and Andrew and our consultant team in December, right before the holidays. It was a great time. But now here we are, January, kind of fast and furious. And so the first things that we're working on is identifying the stakeholders, right? We took a first stab at this, right? Just in our engagement plan. I'm sure there's people that we missed, and that's something that we're looking for input from you all on. And then also trying to set up some things just like bi-weekly meetings with Lindsay and us, and then we're thinking about doing bi-monthly check-ins with you all so that you're having sort of a regular cadence. You're hearing from us, you know what's going on. But also not trying to inundate you with this all the time too. I know you've got a lot on your plate. And then so upcoming from there, another thing that we're looking at is in February, we're hoping to have the consultant team come and do a site visit, where we're basically going to have some folks, Lindsay, maybe some others with the town, kind of show us around some key areas, some places that we need to be really focused on or thinking about more strategically. And then also just trying to meet with some community stakeholders, right? Just get a sense of what their visions are, what are their priorities, what are they thinking about, and really help round out our understanding of where Keystone's at right now and what are they thinking about with regards to, their priorities that should be captured or reflected in the comp plan. And then looking at, yes, please.
Probably for Lindsay, this came up at the KOA meeting last week. And somebody asked me, well, is there going to be a committee, a representative committee that works on, and I said, I think there's outreach to every group that you can imagine, but I don't think there's a separate committee other than a planning commission. Am I right by that, or?
Not exactly.
Oh,
In fact, it's part of what we're going to discuss tonight.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember us talking about a separate committee, but.
We're going to discuss that tonight.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, pros and cons either way, I think, but yeah. So that's kind of going to get us through February, and also in the background, our team is looking at existing conditions analysis. So what do we mean by that? So the state has guidance for comprehensive plans. And so you're probably familiar with the Department of Local Affairs or DOLA. They create a lot of guidelines and checklists, and they also administer grant fundings for communities to work on comprehensive plans and master planning efforts. In those, they kind of outline some things that should be included and some things that kind of have to be included. It gets a little bit muddy there, but just in general, things that really have to be included, and some of these are coming from the state legislature, right, as some things that have been passed that are requirements for communities to consider. So things like housing action plan and housing needs assessment, recreation and tourism, strategic growth and 3 mile plan. So that's looking at like your annexation possibilities. And so the 3 mile planning process will be something we consider alongside of this. It will be sort of an appendix to the comprehensive plan. And so it'll be kind of housed within that. And then water supply, right? So DOLA has a water supply planning tool that we're fairly familiar with. We've worked with other communities to assess their water supply. So it's looking at like, most communities do anticipate some level of growth in the future. What kind of water needs do you have and what kind of water supply availability do you have in order to accommodate growth? And are you going to be running into any issues in that capacity? It gets a little wonky really quickly, but we're going to do our best to try and make sure that it's fairly user-friendly when we're talking about it.
I get the impression that's really tied directly to the growth piece of that.
Yep.
What about all the other infrastructure characteristics that are either encouraging or discouraging growth? You've got power as well as that, you've got disposal, trash, et cetera, stormwater, roads, et cetera, all the physical infrastructure on top of that. Is that in the strategic growth section?
You would think so, but no. A lot of that actually ends up falling into the things that you may or should look at. So things like transportation, infrastructure, other utility requirements. Water is really the only utility that is actually a required element in comprehensive plans. Pretty much everything else is all just up to you whether or not you want to explore that in more depth or not. I have my own opinions on it, but that's just kind of the lay of the land on where that is.
Well, I'll probably have a conversation.
Okay. But yeah, again, so things that you should look at, and these are things that we're expecting to be uncovering as well. So transportation, land use, economic development, affordable housing, environment, parks and open space, natural and cultural resources, hazards. This is one that's one of those things that's not, I think the state was looking to try and make that a requirement, but it's not currently. So resiliency, right? So that's kind of comes back to your point too of like, what's the resiliency of your community? What kind of environmental hazards are you facing? What kind of infrastructure things are you going to have to be paying attention to? So things of that nature. So these are things that we are expecting to look at. At least that's how we drafted it in scope of work. And so in terms of how we're going to communicate this back to you all, our plan is to put together a series of memos that are topic specific. So kind of looking at each one of these in depth. And so basically, we'll review a lot of the background materials, things that we've gotten from town staff, things that we can find online, things that we can find through the census data, through the county assessor, through the county website, their open GIS portal, which is kind of their mapping software system. So this is where it does get a little bit interesting, as I was referencing earlier. So Keystone, as a newly formed community, So Keystone has been in the census a designated place, and I'm sorry, I spend a lot of time in demographic data, so stop me if I'm getting too in the weeds here. But they've spent a lot of time as a census designated place, but it's not inclusive of your entire town boundaries. It leaves out a few parcels, but the census has things called block groups, and you can collate your block groups together and basically form your own boundaries. So we were able to put together the series of block groups that make up what is within the current town boundaries. And so that's probably where we're going to be doing a lot more of our like current data analysis, right? So what's your current population? What does your housing stock look like? What's your demographic profile? Things of that nature, just to kind of give you some baseline, right? As you're planning ahead, when you're on your 5th comprehensive plan, you'll be wanting to look back at what were some of your demographic trends, right? So making sure that you have sort of a record of some of those things. But it's also kind of handy to understand, right, where you've been as a place, right? Because Keystone, even though the boundaries of what is the town is new as of 2023, this place has been here for a long time. There's been a lot of people that have lived here for a long time. There's been a lot of rich history in this area. So we can pull data from the census designated place as a backwards look, but just know that that will be exclusive of some parcels that make up your community. But at least it's a baseline for helping us inform some previous trends and some things that, have happened in your community before. Yes, Steve.
So when you're looking at this comprehensive plan, will you be bringing in expertise as it relates to where fire breaks should be or other things, obviously top of mind, California? Are we gonna look at that? Because there could be a decision where that could be the overriding trump card over something else that somebody may want, something that may be the trump for the decision for the group to make. So I just didn't know who you bringing in as part of that that understands the prevailing winds and all that kind of stuff that come into that.
Yeah, so we'll actually be leading that effort. SE Group will. We've done a lot of sustainability and hazard work for other communities in the past, and also where we have gaps in our knowledge, the State Department of Local Affairs has a plethora of resources. So we have a ton of data availability, and other stakeholders like the U.S. Forest Service, and the Community Wildfire Protection Partnership that's been ongoing here. Like, we're going to be outreaching to these stakeholders to help fill in the gaps of where we can't pull data to kind of understand, where are high fire risks, where should fire breaks be. And I also kind of get the point behind the point too. What you're getting at is like, as you're thinking about strategic growth or potential annexations or community, changes, right? Like, overlaying where some of those natural hazards are can help dictate some of the plans for like how you might want to grow too. So yeah.
Thank you.
I saw your hand first, Peter.
Just a little extra information. There's a 700-page document the county put together that has quite a bit of information with regards to their view of the hazards, et cetera.
Yeah.
That could be a pretty strong foundation to start with, so we don't have to reinvent too much of a wheel.
Yeah, no, that's great.
You know the name that, do you have access to it?
I can probably find it online, but if you're
Do you know
send it
the-
to me,
do you
that'd be
know the
great.
name?
In my SharePoint site that I forwarded to you guys, I had a bunch of notes, FYI for everybody, I had a bunch of notes about resiliency and a few other things. Started with water, but also looked a little bit at land, a few others. There's a whole bunch of references in there. If they can get access to that SharePoint site,
It's already done.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sorry, I haven't had a chance to
It's
jump
right-
into it.
that's in there.
I was going to do this at a later time, but, Peter put together an amazing amount of data and resources to data, that speaks exactly to existing conditions and inventory, and basically the baseline of what we're dealing with. So, Peter,
hopefully it helps.
no, it's pretty amazing. I'm gonna share it. I just, tonight, I just don't want to get into the weeds.
No, that's weak.
But with that being said, Melanie and I wanted to absolutely, well, the rest of the, commission, thank you as well, but absolutely amazing job.
Yeah, I want as much feedback as possible. Am I going into the weeds? Am I missing something? Are there huge areas? Et cetera? I tried to take a little bit from a resiliency and a sustainability perspective for everybody else's view of this is what do we have now? What are the characteristics of that are a little bit of demographics, but I don't have a lot of data access.
It's tricky.
Try to extract what I could. And I said, okay, I'm starting to get into the weeds. I don't want to repeat maybe something that you already have better access to, but I thought it might be a starting point
Resource
to
that
conversation.
to some degree will utilize.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I haven't had the chance to look into it. Lindsay did share with me. I'm excited to dig in for sure. So thank you for putting that together.
Wendy had, yeah, you had a question.
In that vein,
Yeah.
is there gonna be a quantification of land use by ownership and control? So in other words, I've already been asked this question. How much of incorporated Keystone is National Forest Service land? I don't have an answer to that.
Well,
Yeah.
There's zero, absolutely none of it is, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
All on the boundary.
it's all on the boundary.
Yeah, so it is a little funny though, because within the boundaries of the town, nothing is U.S. Forest Service land. When you get into like what I was talking about with the census, right? This is where data can get a little bit out of control really quickly. One of your block groups that's on the east side of your community, the census has the block incorporation of the Forest Service land. That's kind of just up the road from us. So it's a little bit funky, but we're able to, because we have GIS software, we're able to clip that portion out of it so that we're able to just analyze the portion that is actually inclusive of within your town boundaries. So that's kind of where there's advantages to us being able to like siphon out some of the data that exists and then run it through our own analytical software to make it more customizable to your actual geography. However, right, because of doing that, because we're doing that, like the block groups that exist here weren't captured in the decennial census from 2000 or 2010. So there's no like long historical record of data. So it does get a little bit tricky, but you're right. Lindsay, that none of it's Forest Service land. So, and to your original question, there should be some availability already with regards to land use by ownership on your county assessor website.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you should be able to have access to your county assessor website. Sometimes it's behind a firewall, but if not, you can always reach out to your county staff and they'll make sure that you're
The
able to
county
access it.
GIS site changed from a dedicated one to an ArcGIS-based system,
Right,
literally over the last couple of months.
yeah,
So they've actually expanded a lot of their functionality when they put it into the open GIS.
Yeah.
The ArcGIS.
it makes a big
So
difference.
they've got a whole lot of data, visual and whatnot. My notes, by the way, have a few extracts from there.
Yeah,
I use that a lot as a mechanism to see what the heck are we? How big are we? And that kind of question.
Yes, yeah, just a quick follow-up. I know we don't want to go into the utilities, but I think, we need to really understand. I'm dealing with it real time now in Canada and throughout the US, and I'm finding where they say they have the capacity, but then some, getting the weed a little bit, finding the pipes are 50 years old. And the amount of water we're asking for causes scrubbing act, all of a sudden there's brown water going in the hotel rooms. Or the power company says we got the power, but you find out the transfers aren't manual, they're not automatic, and then, you know, when that happens, there's all kinds of havoc with software and other low voltage stuff. So when we get into it, it's more than just the utility company go, yeah, we got you covered. I learned the hard way, kind of, some pretty bad whips there, so just want to agree with you here that we need to make sure.
There's a whole bunch of details in water. Turns out there were 3 water districts in the town of Keystone. People don't even understand that. And one of them had serious issues. And I've had direct conversations with a water district guy who happens to be in my district and very helpful to help me learn terminology and whatnot. And he talked about what are his concerns about growth. And I talked about one characteristic that I would love to share now. I'll do it fast. One of the key problems with any kind of utility is what I call a problem with a step function. You know, your utility access is $1,000 for the next 1,000. Oh, that next one's gonna be about 1.3 million. All utilities try to balance that out, understand where that is, but part of what I hope to see as part of our understanding what the town has now is what are our step functions? What are the keys? They're already putting in on 1.x million gallon tank. And that's a kind of a step function associated with the Snake River Water District. But we have those. Yeah, literally, you know, a few hundred yards of. So I hope to see that foundation of what do we have now? What can it do as it sits today? And what are the step functions we're gonna run into? Because even the sewer system had a step function just literally right now because of some characteristics in the state and their volume needs. So this, you know, down the waste area had to grow. They had to get special dispensation on their own internal zoning. Luckily, that's outside of town Keystone, but it affects us.
I want to just suggest to everyone that we let the presentation go through, because if we have all this detailed discussion here, we're just the very, very beginning, we will be here all night, which we don't want to do. So let's let him run through his presentation.
Fortunately, I only have 3 more slides. We're getting close here. But so to the points that have been discussed so far, right? So the existing conditions approach, right, is our opportunity. And the reason I put this sort of zoom in on a microscope here is for us, sort of as outsiders, right, to kind of take a microscopic view of your community, right? Understand what you have, you know, understand some of your opportunities and some of your constraints too, so that, you know, it's codified, it's written down, you have it as a reference tool. And so how these memos, so you can expect them late February, right? As we're kind of putting together, as you can imagine, some of this analysis takes a little longer than others. So we've already gotten started in earnest on this approach, but yeah, late February is when we'll plan to have some memos sent over to Lindsay, who I'll make sure to have him share those out with you as well. The format, it's kind of interesting. We're doing this question and answer format. So we're basically posing the question in the memo, and then, you know, the answer is, you know, the answer, but we're trying to ask. So an example of this would be, where are the key wildlife corridors and conservation areas in Keystone? And then the answer would be follow up with a map description and, you know, kind of some key points of interest that kind of get right at this. you maybe have seen other existing conditions that kind of just like list a bunch of tables. I think that this approach is way more user friendly. So, kind of while we're all here, the engagement plan. So it was in your packet. I hope many of you got the chance to skim through it before this evening. Some of the key takeaways just at a high level, that there's going to be several opportunities to engage a wide swath of the community, right? Stakeholders, local business owners, nonprofits, the residents themselves, seasonal workers. And so, you know, I guess the initial discussion question I have for you, or what were some initial thoughts you had?
You're missing one of the largest stakeholders.
Okay,
KOA, which represents almost 4,000 homeowners.
okay,
So
Oh, we're here.
that's why we're here. Yeah, see, this is, Lindsay and I were talking.
KOA is the Keystone Owners Association. Everybody refers to it as KOA. So, and I can give you the name of it.
That would be excellent.
Dennis McWhorter is the president.
General question on terminology, you have the word base map in some of this, and I didn't understand what a base map is.
Yeah, that's funny. So the base map can be a little different depending on different projects. What we normally envision with the base map is it's basically something that highlights all of the different sort of layers that exist within your community, right? So where are some of your conservation areas? What are your key road networks? Where are some opportunity areas? The base map will mostly be a tool for us to use actually in engagement, right? So a very successful way to engage folks, especially if they don't have a whole lot of familiarity with planning, but they have some familiarity with the community, right? Like maybe they know where they're having trouble, you know, crossing sidewalks, or where they're feeling like this is a particular area that they've seen a lot of stormwater runoff that's not draining properly, or that this is an area where they've seen elk migration here, but it's not really listed as a conservation area. Having a big map that kind of outlines some of your, like basically the universe of what exists now, that we can blow up and have available at engagement events where people can mark up, is usually a pretty good engagement tool for people to kind of, you know, get them thinking about, oh, this is an area where I think is really important for you all to consider, or this is an area where we really need an intervention, or this crossing here is really unsafe and we need to make sure that we're noting that. So then it kind of serves as a spatial record of all these different things that we need to be taking into consideration. And then it can help us with thinking about what policies or what recommendations do we need to be writing to make sure that we're kind of addressing some of those.
So it's kind of a set of base maps of
Right,
general categories of items.
exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
Dave.
I was lucky enough to get rear-ended Saturday night at the Four Corners stoplight, so I'll throw out two Summit Fire and EMS and Colorado State Patrol.
So far, that's good.
In the 911 system, to add to your thoughts, that itself is actually much multi-jurisdictional, I think is the right word, kind of group. I don't know the actual point of contact for that one. It's a separate entity in some ways, but it interacts obviously with fire and the Summit Fire EMS, but I don't think it's sponsored by them. I think it's separate.
It's through the county.
This year.
Yeah, is it a county subbed out function?
No,
They do it with their own employees.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
and they're constantly looking for dispatchers.
I think it's not easier.
So Lindsay referenced that we would get to this point. Here we are. So something that was brought up earlier is the possibility of having sort of an advisory committee or a stakeholder committee that's, you know, kind of tracking alongside the project, or the opportunity to engage stakeholders in more sort of focused conversations. You know, I think that there's advantages to either approach. So sort of an advisory committee, right, could be a group of, let's say, 10 to 15 people that maybe represent a broad swath of different interest groups in your community, right? So maybe it's finding one or two seasonal folks, maybe somebody from Keystone Resort, maybe somebody from CDOT, somebody from Summit County, somebody from the Combined Housing Authority, somebody from various developments, right? KOA, Winter Green, and, you know, kind of having them as people that are sort of regular touch points throughout the project, right? So I'll give you an example. Right now, we're working in Steamboat Springs, and they have something that's actually codified in their comprehensive planning process that they do, called an area plan coordinating committee. And so this is a group of people that are not elected officials and not town staff. So in this particular instance, their area plan coordinating committee is functioning as sort of an advisory group that we're meeting with every other month. We've been working with them for the past 10 months. And so this group is comprised of people that are nonprofit professionals that work for the Housing Authority in Routt County, that work for the Transportation Department, things of that nature, right? And there's also, I think, 5 people that are just residents. Two of them recently moved to Steamboat, and the other 3 have been there for a very long time. One person's been there for 50 years, which is pretty awesome. And so that's kind of like, what's interesting about that group is they offer a different lens, right? Because they're not necessarily tasked with the implementation, right, of the comp plan. So my role here is to help you in writing a comprehensive plan, asking questions of you, asking questions of your community to kind of help get at uncovering like what exists and where do you want to go and what things can we recommend to you and put in your foundational document. But then after that, you know, my time goes away and it's up to you all to kind of implement it, make sure that it has, you know, the teeth it needs to kind of be a living document. And so one thing that's handy about this sort of advisory committee, right, is that these are people that aren't necessarily, right, directly responsible for the regulatory oversight of the comp plan, but they are sort of tacitly involved in implementation, right? Maybe they're helping you with, you know, being some development partners that are helping produce housing for some of your residents, or maybe they're people that you're going to have to work with over time with regards to, you know, transportation safety, or people that you're going to have to be working with regards to hazard resiliency, right? People that are going to be your stakeholders along the way. So maybe it's a good opportunity to have them in at the ground floor, right? And have regular touch points with them. On the flip side, you know, that's one extra kind of layer of people for us to be working with and kind of presenting to and kind of forming, you know, different materials for. You know, I'm comfortable with whatever, right? We'll do the work. That's what we signed up for. But we can also engage these folks because they're still very much engaging in a very different capacity. And something that we outlined in the engagement plan is more aligned with this capacity, which is kind of doing more of a focus group approach. So maybe 3 to 4 focus groups where we say maybe this particular focus group is on transportation and safety. And we get together various stakeholders that we outline, could be, you know, have a very specific lens or something to offer, or people that you're going to be working with and helping implement some of your goals over time. Bring them in for a focused conversation for maybe a couple hours, get all their input, and then we can just capture that, record it, and make sure that it's, you know, referenced again in the plan document. And so we could do those over a series of different topic areas, hazards and resiliency, housing, things of that nature. So those are kind of the 2 different approaches. So it could be more of like a one-time thing where we're engaging various stakeholders sort of once, and, you know, trying to get as much out of them as we can in that particular instance. Or and what the benefit to that, right, is that we can say if we're focused on hazards and resiliency in this one particular focused conversation, the universe is big, right, in terms of all the people we can bring in for a fairly decent sized workshop. But it's kind of, that's their one shot, right? So what if somebody from Summit County EMS is just sick that day and can't make it in there, and would have been critical? Or what if, you know, it's, you know, a blizzard, I-70 closes and half the people can't come or something. But anyway, so that's kind of like some of the drawbacks. The advantages though are, right, it's kind of, you know, more of a one-time thing, and we're getting a lot more voices at the table. Whereas with an advisory committee, just to be sort of cognizant of their time and sort of, you know, everybody's time, it would probably be a situation where we're maybe getting one delegate that represents kind of one voice across a variety of different perspectives or ways of life, right? So one person maybe from CDOT, one person from Summit County, things of that nature. And we're engaging with them more regularly, but we're not getting sort of that same universe of input. So those are kind of the considerations.
I think it's a working group type approach. I just recently worked on some counties, but very specifically in the housing group.
Mhm.
We met 4 times. It was very organized. It was very laid out. And we're a piece to the whole puzzle. I don't think Keystone's big enough to have a separate commission to do a comprehensive plan. It makes no sense.
I tend to favor the focus group approach, which I think is what you're saying.
Yes, I-
Topical, because
Yeah.
now if you're getting like one representative from whoever from KO or from science school, I mean, the different topics, there are people who have different interests and different expertise. And different people could show up for, depending upon the topical area, representing that organization, you know, based on their experience and their interest versus one person trying to represent everything.
It's too diluted.
Yeah, and so I would lean towards to say we're gonna have focus groups on these particular topics
Yeah.
and say, send somebody who you think could best represent your organization, your stakeholders in that particular area.
And then
It might not be the same person, right?
Yeah, announce the dates and
Oh, yeah.
things.
Yeah,
The stakeholder, the general advisory groups have a tendency to be extremely difficult to get everybody in at the same time.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult to manage in terms of everybody wants their voice. I'm guilty as such that. The point being is I think the idea of breaking it down into major headings or sections and having focus groups rather than having one great big, because I envision Lindsay and Andrew being your primary advisory board and a tight iteration, like what are you missing? That should come from both this group, but mostly through Lindsay and Andrew.
And they've been great at that role so far. I'll give them their props.
What appeals to me about the focus groups too is something that what you said about, the topics that we're going to be discussing are so vastly different. So somebody that's like super interested in water and infrastructure needs to be on that focus group. And then somebody who's really interested in wildlife corridors and recreation, it's completely different subjects matter. And so you're going to have really different types of people looking, wanting to engage in those completely different things. So it's kind of nice that people could pick their home.
I think all the discussion, it sounds great, and honestly, to kind of reveal my hand, that's kind of the direction that I would lean to, so. Well, that's great. Is there any other reflections or thoughts on that? So the sort of the next steps with regards
the only
to,
thing I would say is,
sorry, Ken.
if we go the focus group route, and I think this is what Wendy was alluding to, is to set those dates
Yeah.
well in advance, not like a week before, because some of these people, because we do want input, for instance, from second homeowners, and a lot of them are up here a lot of the time, and to be able to plan their being in Keystone for that, because doing it in person will be a lot better than trying to do it over the phone. So I think the earlier we can set those dates and topical areas, and get it out to these groups and say, and somebody that can participate.
Well, you got some 14 months to do it, March through July.
Yeah.
You'll get the best of them. So let's set the dates now.
Yeah, I think in the engagement timeline, we had said March, April, May, maybe June as months where we do some focus group conversations. So kind of spacing them out, right, just in case there's any duplicative efforts. And also, we try to put together a lot of materials to help facilitate these conversations. So sometimes it does take, there's a bit of lag time in between that's needed just to kind of generate all the meeting materials that go into the facilitation process. And then to your point, right, making sure that folks know that this meeting's coming up and that it's on their radar and well enough in advance. So kind of putting those a little further afield at this point does help us kind of space those out and make sure that we can advertise them appropriately.
With that being said, there's a line item in our budget, reach out is gonna be paramount. So, my goal is to do the best job we possibly can to reach out in every way we possibly can think of, from technology that I can't understand, to my generation flyers and getting the words out. So we are going to really do our very best to get the community as a whole engaged.
I,
One of the general categories of community was businesses, and which are a little bit tricky to manage. And I was wondering, what's everybody's perspective on the Summit Chamber? Is that a good representative group for commerce and general businesses? Or is that what, because it's summit level, does that not really cover us? I don't know, but a little tiny bit through the RTAP meeting, I think it was, got a little bit of flavor for their input on that meeting. And you should also be aware of that. What is it, the Rural Technical Assistance Program?
I've been tracking a little bit alongside.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that they're aware that there's some other groups helping, trying to do a narrow piece of what you're working on, for sure.
I had a question for you in terms of the top, like, with the draft plan you have, do you have focus groups on like topics like housing, transportation? But is there also going to be, a topic that's more like location, like sort of like the location of Keystone? Like what would people like to see developed at Mountain House? Or what would they like to see improved at River Run? Something that's more connected with the sort of the places within Keystone.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It is.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different events that are described, or engagement opportunities described in the plan that, we're leaving a little more open-ended to kind of get at some of the things like that. So one of them would be more of like an open house, right? And that could be a couple hours long. Maybe we hold it here or somewhere, depending on the weather. That's, real nice for people to gather. We've done them at carnivals before. We've done them all kinds of things. Rodeo before. That was kind of cool. And so, we can have these open houses where we're kind of getting these things, and that's actually a really great use of things like base map approach, right? Where we can have a map that's available that people can kind of comment on, like, this is my vision for this area, like, or where do you want to see improved, or what do you think is really a cool opportunity zone that's maybe overlooked, or where's the special area that you love about Keystone that other people maybe don't know about, or that should exist, or something. So
an example of that is like revitalizing Lakeside Village, which all the people in that area, and I have fought this battle every year over and over again. We just don't seem to go. I once came up with a list of 20 things they could do, which they did one. Because that's the concern of a lot of people. Everything is very focused on Lakeside Village becoming close time. And there are things that can be done if somebody's willing to do it.
Tim, when you get a chance, would you be willing to share that list with me?
Yeah, I have to do that.
Yeah. And by the way, the list would not be used as a weapon or anything like that. It's more of an inventory of things that can be approved and absolutely not aiming at the resorts.
Yeah, no, themselves,
Your other commercial areas.
the number one thing in this ties to transportation is to get a shuttle, village to village shuttle that only goes from village to village. So somebody at River Run knows how to get over to Lakeside, Ice Gate, go to a restaurant, go to whatever, but without having to take the green shuttle that makes 15 stops, takes 20 minutes to get there. And I have pushed this topic and I finally gave up.
Again, it'll be good information to focus in on. What category that falls under, is it?
I actually have a funny story about the green from my instructor days when I accidentally went to the wrong base area on my second day of work, and it ended up late to line up because I couldn't walk her. I was like, oh, there's a shuttle, just take me right over there. It took me forever. So yeah. So in terms of next steps for the engagement plan, we'll finalize some dates. So we're going to start putting some like actual kind of dates, and I'll be working directly with Andrew and Lindsay on that. And if they have others that they want me to work with, I'm very happy to. And right now, we're gonna try and focus in on sort of like the next few months, right? Just because it's a lot easier to understand the universe of what's gonna happen in the short run. And then we'll kind of give a better sort of just general outline in terms of like when we think this particular thing could happen, right? And then from there, we'll also make sure that we're incorporating some edits, adding some list of stakeholders that we missed, and making sure that, that's all buttoned up and dialed. And then I'm hoping to have a refined version of that back out in the next 2 weeks, so. Yeah, that's all I have. Lindsay, did I miss anything?
Please know that while this is really the first engagement with Dylan, there's been quite a bit of work being done behind the scenes. So, we certainly have not been idle by any means. Again, because the town is a brand new town, it is challenging to exact some of that information that is specific to the town. So, we are building the database, but we're building information daily.
Thank you.
Is there gonna be some sort of communication, like status update kind of thing? I get, because of the different groups I'm involved in, like I said, this came up to the KOA meeting, and like the KOA newsletter is supposed to go out today, and I forgot to do it. Will go out tomorrow, which goes out to, all of the homeowners. And, people are looking, well, what's the update, what's going on? And I'm just wondering if there's part of this is a regular, whether it be monthly or regular, or something, kind of status update of what's going on, because I know I get asked all the time. And but would go to people who aren't necessarily going to go to focus group meetings, whatnot, they're just curious as to what's going on. And I'm just wondering what the plan is for that.
I'm so glad you asked me that, Tim, because it made me realize that there was a huge omission that I left out, which is that we do have a lot of communication vehicles that we're expecting throughout this process. So it's in our scope. We're going to build a project-specific website that has a bunch of information. It'll also be a place where people can register for events, where people can see what's upcoming. And we also, it's also in our scope for us to be generating copy for materials that can be sent over to the Summit Daily, that can be provided to the town, that can go out in the town's newsletter, things that can go, that, I'm more than happy to put together mailers and give them to Lindsay to go knock on doors.
Actually, a website is great. I know in the incorporation effort, I think that was probably the most hit website I've ever managed, because everybody went to that website because they knew they could find out what's going on and all of the.
It was invaluable.
Huh?
It was invaluable. You can't put more dollar figure on information available immediately to people.
So excited they had that available.
Yeah.
I see that's over several months in the project schedule, so
Yep.
when do you think it'll be operational? Because we'd like to tell people that.
Yeah, we'll have the website up mid-February. And then, so the sort of that piece that's across the timeline, that's basically just putting a placeholder down for us to be updating it on a regular cadence. So that, the information stays current. Let's say we have a draft version of the plan, we can then make sure that we're updating the website to house that draft version, so that anybody who's been tracking alongside the project, or anybody that's lives in the community and wants to be able to comment on the plan, they know where to go and find it, things of that nature. So
Do you envision both the fundamental, here's what we know now? What I worry about is, I changed that this week, and then a little bit of this that week, and a little bit of this, and it's almost impossible for anybody to detect that. Typical mechanisms on a website is what's the latest changes, what's the news, so people can, I didn't look at it for the last 3 weeks, and I go just get what happened in the last 3 weeks, as opposed to, shoot, there's a nice pool of information, but it's almost impossible to tell what's changed over time.
yeah, that's a good question. I think I need to think about that one a little bit. Yeah. Also, I'm probably not gonna be the one building the website. I'll say I've built many websites, but I'm gonna put it to somebody with a lower billing rate than me. And have them put together the website. And so I think it'll also depend a little bit on what the capabilities are of the software tool that we put together too. So, But that's a good question, something I'll think of.
Anybody else? Thank you so much.
One comment. In your focus groups, there's a little tiny bit of wording that stood out and jumped at me and yelled at me. It says, one-time focus group conversations. I know you intend to feed back to those focus groups what you hear and see, but I worry about the word one time triggers the reaction. It's like one and done. Sure, what do you mean? I can't feed back, or you got it wrong, or I don't know how to address it. Just in general, the words one time usually implies they're gonna listen to me for 5 minutes and write down a few words and then they're gone. That's an impression that can be made by the words one time.
I'm happy to make that edit. I think that's a good flag. It's always interesting to hear how different things resonate with people. So yeah, I'm glad you got that. But no, of course, we plan on, we'll be taking notes. We'll have a ton of facilitation materials, and we'll make sure that we're sending out follow-ups, with everybody that attended. So it'll be great for us to make sure that we're capturing people's contact information along the way too, because then it can help. Not only for us to be able to make sure that we're sending materials back to them that sums up the process of what we heard, but also, you know, as you're developing your sort of list of stakeholders too internally, right? Just kind of developing all the people that maybe you need to add to your newsletters or things of that nature too. So
Before we finish up, I want to play just a game. I want to go around the room to each commissioner, and you're only allowed to say one thing that I'm curious to know individually, and you can't repeat anyone's. Topics, issues, goals, something, hold on here, that you feel is vital to the master. So, Gary?
I guess safety for me,
In the context of,
in terms of like traffic, pedestrian traffic, that ever since I've started living here, I've always been afraid of that. My husband also walks to work. I used to walk to work across the highway. Especially with so many people from out of town who aren't familiar with pedestrian laws and things like that. I feel like it's always just like an accident waiting to happen.
good, here,
Easy, resiliency and sustainability.
Don,
I'm really interested in the wildlife corridors and that, and in conjunction with, I kind of read that fire protection in that, because that's something that really enjoy the outdoors and try to figure out how do we preserve that.
wonderful, David. Come on.
I'll throw out the 3 mile plan because I kind of see Keystone as being landlocked. I'll be very curious to see the map that says the town versus the US Forest Service. And hopefully we have a really good that person, because if we're, you know, Gilligan's Island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean of the US Forest Service, we can say we have lots of plans, but
Dolly.
I would say the interconnectivity of the villages.
Don't steal mine.
I love that one though. Making sure that the town all is cohesive, all the different parts of the town work together.
Excellent. Tim,
Passion, revitalize Lakeside Village.
oh, I took the slide down, but my last slide.
yeah, the thing for the pond. Dolly,
My big concern is, I remember Keystone 30 years ago when I first moved there, bought a place here. And I'm very concerned about preserving our character. We are not Breckenridge. We're not Philmont. We're not Frisco.
we're Keystone.
We're Keystone, and I wanna know what our identity is as such, and there's a real character, family quality to this place, and I'm quite concerned about it being preserved. There's sustainability.
And this is gonna be my favorite.
I guess the last
It's hard.
Hard to go.
Say anything that's also,
No, it's gonna be,
but, so I would say that the, wilderness part of it, and the interface with the Forest Service and how Keystone, has an impact and interact with that. Because I think that kind of has a lot of those thoughts that we.
no, it's, I'm done.
I'm gonna, this is one that I deal with every Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to figure out this is parking.
Parking traffic.
I mean, that's it, that was what, I mean, I have customers that show up and said it took me 2.5 hours to get here from Denver, I've been driving around for an hour, and can't find a place to park, and by the time they get to me, to take one of their grumpy.
That speaks to character. No, it does. People have I hear constantly, we're losing our vibe here. We're losing it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Lindsay, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What's in your list? Number 1 or 2?
Pedestrian safety, traffic, highway 6, and connectivity of all the neighborhoods.
And can I plug Andrew or not?
I think, yeah, sense of place, kind of the identity piece, like what, and revitalization too, with all of that, whether it's school, restaurants, and places to make Keystone, Keystone.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
all right, thank you so much. Our next agenda item is whether or not we have any additional updates or items that we need to discuss. You're not allowed to say infrastructure.
No.
Go ahead. I know. Yeah.
Communication, I think of people, process and tools. We've talked about the people, we've got new people, we've got processes involved and foundations of that, all good. Tools a little less so. I wanted to understand what people view and how do we want to continue to communicate and share and establish an infrastructure. We have the SharePoint site, and I wanted to understand from people's perspective, is that wasted time? Or is, oh heck, absolutely have to use it? Because I use that indefinitely. And it's a very rapid way of communicating, and more importantly, creating a foundation that is, I've got documents up there that I can see and share. I've got notes that we can have, that we can see and share, et cetera. But I don't know if that's something that's kind of over everybody's head or, oh heck, yes.
Anybody? have-
And you don't have to answer it now, just think about how do we want to communicate? As email becomes almost untenable over time.
Yeah.
I am confident from what my correspondence with Dylan and SE Group, they're taking a tremendous amount of various types of information, I mean, a lot, bifurcating it from the county and consolidating. Because, believe it or not, I do other things, Andrew does other things. I can easily fill up every 8-9 hour day just reading what he's segregating, if you will. So I feel pretty comfortable thus far, again, early in the process, that SE Group will, filter it down, if you will, right? But if you're interested in more data, we'll have links to those as well. I think.
Part of that is what, is there in something in the contract with SE Group with regards to the data they create?
I would love to get Diane on the call as well, virtually, if you want to contribute then, to the previous discussion.
Yes, thank you. And Diane? All right, I will go in her item, separately. I apologize on that. Technology.
That's right.
A minor note with regards to the contract with them. The information they generate,
Diane?
Just to unmute her.
Yeah, I think you can unmute yourself, Diane.
All right, either type your topic in chat, wait, I might get it somewhere.
Give me a, microphones, and click that mic symbol if you see that.
Okay,
All right,
we
The
tried.
chat is disabled, just so you all know.
say that again, please.
Oh, chat is.
Oh, okay, all right, we'll work on that.
Okay.
So to John, I apologize, Dan, do you, did you have one focus that you're interested in the master plan having?
Then I think she still needed. That's right. Yeah,
Heard what she got on the shore.
and Gabby, I think so it was.
All right, I'll do that independently.
Yeah.
And incorporate it.
Yes, sure, James.
Maybe, I'm a technology Neanderthal. I thought I wasn't as bad as Lindsay, that I was gonna need carrier pigeons to send me communications or something. But I don't know what SharePoint is. You can give me a brief answer, but number two,
this, if anybody's interested, I can talk about it, I don't want to take everybody's time.
but number two, I don't know whether Jennifer needs to feed in on this, because I remember a conversation about things have to be public meeting and they have to be available. If it's just Steve and I talking at a bar and we run into each other, that doesn't have to be disclosed. But if we sit down and we're planning something out, that this is the agenda and this is what we're gonna propose.
That's correct. Again, we're talking very informally right now. This meeting was, publicized. Yeah, I don't want, the entire group to talk without this set. Now, with that being said, a lot can be done individually and in some groups. We'll get there. But yeah, thank you, David.
Yeah.
That is important. We will be following all applicable Bob's rules of order. So thank you. Good point.
Okay,
Who owns the data that they create when we're done?
I believe the contract says we do.
I think this concludes our agenda items for today. It was a really good meeting. If there isn't anything else to talk about, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move.
A second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, so the meeting is adjourned. I think I'm supposed to say what time. Meeting is adjourned at 6:45.
So we're meeting February 20th next.
I think that's about right.
If you're curious, since this, if I can get on the net, I can show you specifically as well as verbally describe to you some of the very high level capabilities of something here.